right. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you may be. Thank you for joining us. Another episode of Catching Up with Jacob. Looking forward to it. Here he is, Jacob Prash.
Blessings, dear friends. I'm so happy that the Lord is coming. Very happy.
Amen.
That is my one beacon of light in the hour of which we live. He is coming.
Amen. And we also have David Lister back home. David.
Back from the fellowship drive, Marco. People out there are starved for fellowship, and they're willing to do what it takes to get it. We've already seen some fruit from the latest drive. We're seeing putting people together. We've seen this girl already start coming to the light that was darkened by NAR. New by NAR teachers. So please pray for C. She's a lovely girl, and she needs prayer. She's
Amen.
got a way to come, but we've got some people surrounding her. So that to me is fellowship.
That's good. Praise God. Well, welcome back, David. We miss you as always, but we've seen you in the car.
Yeah.
Now you're home. And of course, not too far from my house, Jay.
Wow, from Camarillo down to Long Beach, from the left coast, greetings from Newsom's Communist California.
There he is. I share that sentiment.
The next president, right?
Yeah, probably.
Hope not, but may God give us mercy. May God give us mercy. Jacob Prash, you are going to be in South Africa. And,
Yes.
Believers there, you haven't been there in a while. Looking forward to it. In fact, this caused a little bit of a buzz online because Jacob's coming.
Well, South Africa is a country that desperately needs prayer. The Malema rallies are absolutely Nazi-esque, absolutely like Nuremberg, like Hitler's rally. I compare them to Hitler's rallies at Nuremberg before the Holocaust.
Oh, wow.
That is how evil and demonized that man is. The ANC was evil. This is beyond evil, beyond the ANC. Desmond Tutu knew the ANC was evil before he died. He admitted it before he died, that what he helped bring to power became something just as evil as what he worked to get rid of, being the apartheid. He at least admitted, I didn't like him theologically and so forth, but he admitted the ANC was evil. But this is worse than the ANC. This is something that's unspeakable. However, as we've been saying, God has not abandoned the believers who remain in South Africa of all races, and Moriel has not abandoned them either. I am going there, praying for God's protection. Of course, the crime is outrageously out of control. We shall be in Bloemfontein the 12th and 13th of August, Saturday and Sunday. We shall be in Bloemfontein at Ebenezer Gemeente, 3 Kenilworth Road in Kenilworth, Bloemfontein. We shall be there on Saturday the 12th at 6 p.m. at night, and we shall be there at 9 in the morning on the 13th, Sunday the 13th. That is 3 Kenilworth Road, Kenilworth, Bloemfontein. Monday the 14th, Johannesburg. I will be in the Berg Gemeente on 17 Lawley Avenue in Northcliffe in Johannesburg. Northcliffe, Johannesburg, 17 Lawley Avenue. That'll be Monday the 14th and Tuesday the 15th. 2 days in Joburg. Both meetings will be at 7 p.m. in the evening. Both meetings at 7 p.m. Wednesday the 16th and Thursday the 17th, 2 nights, Port Elizabeth at Collegiate High School, Ivy Leaf Hall, the main security gate, and Kestel Street, Parsons Hill in Port Elizabeth. Again, Collegiate High School, Ivy Leaf Hall, Kestel Street, Parsons Hill, Port Elizabeth. Both meetings on the 16th and 17th will be at 7 p.m. And then finally, Cape Town, Saturday the 19th, we will have 3 sessions and an all-day seminar, something that's physically difficult for me to do, but we're doing it, apparently. That'll be Cape Town Oakdale Club in Belleville. I know Belleville quite well. Oakdale Club in Belleville at 80A Bloemhof Street. 80A Bloemhof Street. The sessions begin at 9:30 a.m. After coffee, 11:30. a.m. and then after lunch, 14:30 p.m. in the afternoon. Saturday the 19th at the Oakdale Club in Belleville, 9:30, 11:30, and 2:30. So we hope if you are in South Africa, we will see you there. Again, despite what's happening, Jesus knows all of it. He has not abandoned the believers in South Africa, and Moriel has not abandoned South Africa.
That's
We
right.
are there for the Lord, and we are there for you in spite of what's happening. But we do urge people around the world, if you're listening to this, please pray for the situation in South Africa and pray for the believers in South Africa. It is very, very serious and getting worse. See you there.
Thank you, Jacob. And of course, if somebody's watching from South Africa or knows somebody that lives in South Africa, would you let them know about their schedule, about Jacob's schedule, but also about this video? We'd love to hear from you. If you're on the chat, if you want to email Memorial Ministries, if you want to email our church, CCOD in California, let us know. And we'd love to hear from you. There's some believers that we already know. It'll be great to know more. And God may be waking people up in a difficult situation in South Africa.
The schedule is also on the Moriel website, moriel.org. It's posted on our website.
Very good.
Plus, you can look up Mike Ben on his contact information on Moriel under branches, under branches.
That's right.
Contact information is there.
Another way to catch up with Jacob and to listen to him, if you can't be in South Africa, is through our podcast. And the podcast keeps growing and growing as we add more. Jay will let us know. What's the podcast schedule looking like?
Absolutely. Starting on 8/5, we have the Weekend Bible Study with Jacob Prash, The Daggers of Satan. On August 6th, we have the Sunday Morning by Pastor Marco, the Book of Colossians, Put on Christ Part 5. On 8/7, we have this episode of Catching Up with Jacob. On 8/8, we have the Bible Study with Sandy Simpson, 1 Corinthians 5. On 8/9, we have Ken's Corner, episode 21. On 8/10, we have Jacob's Midweek Bible Study, the Book of Exodus, Part 2, A Prophet Like Moses. 8/11, we have Friday with Jacob Prash, Preparing for Persecution, Part 5. 8/12, Weekend Bible Study with Jacob Prash, Holy Anger versus Rage of Satan. The Moriel podcast can be found on moriel.org, moriel.tv, Buzzsprouts, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Podindex, Amazon, TuneIn, Alexa, iHeart, and many, many more. Thank you. And be sure, especially if you're in South Africa, which I hear has spotty electricity, to download your podcast and then listen to it later.
Amen. Thank you, Jay. Absolutely. You can take it anywhere. You can share with anyone. Get a hold of it. And chances are, the way censorship is going, these things might not be available in the near future. I don't know. Not a prophet or son of a prophet, but I think we see the writing on the wall, what governments wants to do, not only the censorship here in America, First Amendment, in other places too, but especially the gospel of Jesus. So we want to welcome those who are watching live on YouTube and Facebook and Rumble and Telegram and Vimeo and Moriel.tv, which is our flagship, morieltv.org, RTN. Did I miss one? And of course, Rumble. We're going to be taking questions on backstage for Jacob and David. So please, if you're on Rumble, start sending your questions as we go through the episode. If you're not on Rumble and you want to get there, you can log off the other ones, or you can go to the one that you like and then go to Rumble later. A lot of options. As long as the Lord keeps us on these platforms, we'll be able to continue to preach God's word and his message, not only on Catching Up, but there's also, we got Sandy on Wednesday. We got Jacob on Thursday. We got Ken's Corner coming up on Saturday, which, by the way, Jay, that's not live stream, is it? No, it's not. It's just simply recordings, right?
Not yet, but we're trying to get Sandy to come in for this next episode. So you might want to tune in for that episode. It should be good.
Oh, that's gonna be fun. It's gonna be fun. Ken and Sandy. It's like a Saturday night at a local steakhouse.
There you go.
What a blessing. Amen. So let's catch up, gentlemen. Let's catch up. And we're not going to talk about the UFOs, although I'm very tempted. The claims in Congress, again, that the UFOs basically took over control of Russia's ICBMs, aimed them to the U.S. This information came not only from Fox News, but also journalists and people that spoke to Congress regarding Russian military officials who said that three separate incidents, not counting the ones that David Lister was telling us earlier on, maybe 2022, that they were reporting that they even took over some of our military and nuclear capabilities destroyers, like the Nebraska, USS Nebraska, that has some, I guess you could say, run-ins with some UFOs, or I forget what they call them now, unidentified vehicles or whatever they call them now. I forget the names, but UAPs, that's what it is, UAPs. So there's much to talk about that. We're not going to talk about that. Or we're not going to talk about Justin Trudeau and his wife divorcing him, at least separation for now. I wonder why, but we'll leave it up to your imagination. All right, cases of leprosy in Florida and Texas. Even unbelieving doctors were saying this is like the biblical leprosy, which probably have to find out more information on that. And we're not going to talk about the secret Chinese lab found in Ridley, California, just north of us here. Why are they doing there? They were messing around with E. coli, different viruses, the one that we were dealing with the last few years, hepatitis, rubella. And thank God for a code enforcement officer who found a hose that was sticking out of a wall and found this lab that nobody knew about. So anyway, much to talk about. We're not going to talk about those things, but we will talk about is what's going on with Trump. We're going to go to Jacob real quick. Jacob, Trump indictment, criminalizing political dissent. Trump vows to revenge, which kind of goes in hand with how much Americans are purchasing weapons over the last month. Over 1 million firearms. They're arming themselves to the teeth. Could it be related? It's my question. And what Jack Smith is doing in the indictment, revealing that Mike Pence has really been Judas Pence over the last few years. So, Jacob, unpack that for us. Your thoughts on the indictment, Jack Smith, Judas Pence, and you can take it anywhere you want to go from there.
Okay. My attitude towards Mr. Trump is ambiguous. I voted for him twice personally. I will not vote for him again. Now, let's just get that out of the way. I've already said these things. He hosted the gay gala at Mar-a-Lago. He promoted homosexuality, lesbianism at Mar-a-Lago. I will not vote for him any more than I would vote for Biden for that reason. He should have remained silent and not taken sides in a culture war. One of the very few things I've ever agreed with Bill Clinton about is don't ask, don't tell. It should just be a non-issue. Don't talk about it, but don't take public political sides in this issue. That is also true of Carrie Lake, the former candidate to be governor of Arizona. I don't respect her anymore either. I would never urge anybody to vote for her or endorse her in any way. Anybody who promotes homosexuality of any party is somebody we should not vote for, in my opinion. There's a video of Laura Bush, George Bush's wife, and Dick Cheney, whose daughter is in a lesbian marriage, calling on the Republican Party to change its position on homosexuality and its adjuncts. This is the Republican Party. God is no respecter of persons. An unjust balance is an abomination to the Lord. If I detest people like Obama and Biden for those reasons, I cannot defend Republicans who do the same thing and engage the same thing. Secondly, and I say that with great disappointment, as someone who supported Donald Trump and voted for him twice, my fellow New Yorker. Secondly, although Mitch McConnell carries a lot of the blame and the Republican National Committee carries a lot of the blame, nobody carries more blame than Donald Trump for what happened in the midterm elections. Despite the unpopularity of Biden, despite the disaster of Afghanistan, the inflation, the oil prices, despite all of that, it is only narrowly that the Republicans regained control of the House and they actually lost in the Senate. Much as I liked Herschel Walker, he was no match for for Warnock in Georgia. To have not endorsed that Black Christian conservative woman, Catherine Barrett, I believe, in Pennsylvania, yes, and to bring in a Muslim who is on the was an agent of Erdogan in Turkey, who served in the Turkish military. And he was a carpetbagger. He was not even from Pennsylvania. And Donald Trump endorsed him and promoted him instead of promoting a genuine conservative, black woman, who was a great person. I have seen similar such cases in New Hampshire and elsewhere. Donald Trump was a loser. He exhibited failed leader. He demonstrated failed political leadership in the midterm elections. And it is my fear, if he goes up against someone like Gavin Newsom, who has the mainstream media who's going to back him, despite his incompetence, despite the mess, the fiscal disaster of California, there's enough stupid people of low intelligence who will vote for him. You know, the women who watch The View, they may have subhuman, well, they do have subhuman intelligence, but they'll vote for Newsom. They'll do that. They just don't, they're incapable of rational or critical thought. That's why they watch The View. And listen to Bihar and Goldberg and these silly people. But, and Hostin, whatever her name is. There are enough women like that. There are enough liberal men like that. Most blacks are going to do what they're told. Most Jews are going to vote Democrat. They wouldn't care if you ran Adolf Hitler. Well, that's a bit of an exaggeration, but they wouldn't care. They'll vote for their own death. I do not believe that Donald Trump can be guaranteed to win the next presidential election if the Democrats come up with a formidable, politically, he may be an incompetent, he may be corrupt, he may be everything. But I don't necessarily believe that there is any assurance that after the mess and the failure that he publicly exhibited in the midterm elections, he is capable of leading the Republican Party to victory in the next presidential election. We cannot afford to see any more of this going on. We have to pray, as Franklin Graham, who I sometimes agree with, sometimes don't, but as he said, we have to pray desperately that God raises up the right president, because America is almost lost. Franklin Graham told the truth. It's almost lost. We cannot afford to lose, and Donald Trump has become a loser. The last election, he was a loser, a big loser. Such a defeat in the Senate, losing a seat in the Senate. Losing, the Democrats gaining in the Senate because of the incompetent leadership of the Republican Party, led by Donald Trump and Mitch McConnell. But then there is the moral issue. Donald Trump has surrounded himself with some very flaky and dodgy Christians from the lunatic fringe, people with crazy doctrines. After his support for the homosexual lesbian agenda at Mar-a-Lago, I do not believe we can say that God's hand is on him. Now, this is not to diminish the good things he did while president. He moved the embassy of the United States to Jerusalem. He kept villains at bay. Had Donald Trump been reelected, Afghanistan would not have happened. Had Donald Trump been reelected, Putin would not have invaded the Ukraine. All of these things are true, but policies and abilities are one thing. Politics is another. There are enough stupid people who will be stupid. How can Jews, and again, I have a Jewish family, how can Jews be so stupid? 75, 80% nearly. How can they be so stupid as to be in a political party with Olmert and Tlaib and anti-Semites? But they are that stupid. How can Black Americans be so stupid as to vote for the party of slavery and Jim Crow? How can they be that stupid? But they are that stupid. Not all, but most. Most Jews, most Blacks, and nearly all students. I'm not saying they're all stupid, but most of them are stupid. Obamacare negatively impacted nobody more than young people and students. But people will vote for their own death. They volunteer to put their own neck in a noose. There are enough stupid people whose minds are controlled by the mainstream media and social media, who are deluded, who are oblivious to reality, who don't understand history, who've never been taught history, and who increasingly don't believe in God, much less the God of the Bible. This spells political doom. It spells sociological and cultural doom, moral doom for a society, and ultimately will have economic ramifications, and probably sooner than later. That is what we are dealing with. No, I do not support Mr. Trump anymore. Unfortunately, I wish I could. I did, but I don't. But now, these prosecutions are an outrage. After 4 years of his taxes and Russian collusion and reporting these things as if they were facts when they had no substance to them, just lies, forged dossiers provided by the Clinton administration. Why is Hillary Clinton and Podesta not indicted? Why? Why are people like Comey and people like McCabe and Strzok and Page, why are these people not indicted? For the FBI to obtain a FISA warrant with what they know was forged data. Where is the justice? And you have somebody who is a demonoid. Garland is Attorney General, just like Eric Holder, the man is a demonoid. Perverting the justice system and the judiciary into a political weapon based on electoral politics and the corruption that accompanies it instead of jurisprudence. A judge in Washington who should be thrown off the bench and into the gutter where she belongs, appointed by Obama. This is the destruction of democracy. At the same time, going after Trump for these things that have no fundamental basis. Now, that may seem harsh. Read the book of Jeremiah chapter 4, or the book of Jeremiah chapter 8, or the book of Jeremiah chapter 10. It uses the Hebrew word avil. My people are stupid. And he repeats it, and then he repeats it again. They are stupid people. Their leaders are stupid, using this Hebrew term avil, meaning they pervert their logic. They pervert their logic. They reduce themselves to the mental level of an animal, a rat trying to preserve an infested swamp. Donald Trump, to his credit, tried to drain it. He put his personal business interests aside and sacrificially ran for president to try to save this country while it was still possible to save it. And the rats of the swamp hate him for it. This is an ugly, ugly, gross injustice. It's not an attack on Donald Trump. It's an attack on the Constitution. It's an attack on America. These are evil, evil people. Schumer is evil. Schiff is evil. Nadler is evil. Pelosi is evil. Garland is evil. Obama is evil. Susan Rice, these are evil people. This is what happened to Israel and Judah in the days of Jeremiah. Their leaders became uniformly evil people. The leaders of the United States government are now uniformly evil people. They are evil. But their presence in government is a judgment on a society that's turned its back on God. This decline of democracy, this corruption of everything that this nation stood for, the United States, I'm in Britain at the moment. And it's not limited to America by any means. Britain's gone the same way. Is a result of people turning their back on the Judeo-Christian biblical heritage. That is why this is happening. Man is made in the image and likeness of God. When you turn your back on God, you stop being a human. You begin to behave like an animal. That's what we have. Christian teenagers being arrested by corrupt cops who should be fired and imprisoned, while transvestite homosexual drag queens are putting on a show across the street aimed at children. Do they get arrested? No. The kids reading the Bible across the street get arrested by corrupt police. Corrupt. Nazis, Gestapo. That is what is happening to American democracy. That is what's going on. We are under the judgment of God. That is true in America. It's true in Canada. It's true in Britain. It's true in Australia. It's true in New Zealand. It's true in South Africa. It is true everywhere. You turn your back on God, he turns his back on you. I assure you, everything I've said can be factually demonstrated. And every reaction to it that I have enunciated can be scripturally justified. The people are stupid. Jeremiah was right. America has become a nation of stupid, stupid people. Not least of all are those who think that Donald Trump can be some kind of a savior and God's man and have God's hand on him after he promoted the same kind of homosexuality and lesbianism as Biden and the Democrats. God does not make those kind of distinctions. Sin is sin. This is the reality. That is my view.
Yeah, David, I wanted to ask you something regarding Jacob mentioned Schumer. And if you recalled, when Trump was president, they asked him about why is Trump doing all these things against the intelligence agency. And quote, he says, you take on the intelligence community, they got 6 ways from Sunday of getting back to you. In a lot of ways, Schumer was absolutely right. The intelligence community, the deep state, whatever you want to call it, has really come against those who stand as against their political ideologies and their agenda, basically criminalizing political dissent. You have people from January 6th and all that stuff. But what do you think of Schumer? He's according to a lot of people, he knows what he's doing. He's not that dumb, but he's very evil.
He is, and he knows his boundaries. He's unlike Trump, who was willing to take it on, and he knew what they're capable of doing. Jacob and my generation, we knew what they were doing in Vietnam, the drugs they were bringing to our generation, the cocaine in the 80s, the CIA, the deep state. All these people have been fighting against the American people for decades. And it's only now that it's no longer just conspiracy. We're actually seeing it now. We're seeing the evidence of the bad things they've done. The evidence is beyond reasonable doubt that the conspiracy against Trump, all of the lies, the made up lies, Brennan, all these people who were involved in this, down to the FBI and the CIA cooperating with them. It's just beyond. Look, if you could put this on a trial to some sane people, then I believe they would all be convicted. But nowadays you can handpick your juries, and when you look at what Jacob was talking about, those that were in Judah and Jeremiah's day that had perverted themselves, that's what America and the Western world is doing. And if you look at the laws the covenant laws that are the foundation for Israel, that they were indicted by God, no less are we being indicted by the same laws of briberies and bloodlust and murders and all sorts of things. So we're just as guilty. And 65 million babies, blood on our hands, plus the millions of more that we paid for around the world. Judgment is coming. The cup of God's wrath is filling up. Look, like Jacob.
Yeah, I want to ask
Jacob, Jesus said 2,000 years ago, he wished the fire was already started, but
Correct.
come quickly, Lord Jesus.
Let me guys ask you this. Obviously, Americans are purchasing more ammo and more firearms each month, arming themselves to the teeth. And here at these episodes, we've talked about that if they indict Trump, if they put him in prison, if they got rid of RFK Jr. in whatever way they think about getting rid of him, it's going to unleash a major problem, a major conflict in America. Do you see that happening more now as things begin to turn and the trajectory seems to go this way? Are you more or less convinced that this is something that could be inevitable, that there's going to be some kind of conflict between political ideologies?
Yeah, but Marco, remember what Biden said? He said, you think you can take on a tank or an F-16 with your little gun? I mean, he's taunting people to take.
I really think they want it. Yeah, I really think they do want it. Yeah, I really do. And I don't know if it's inevitable. Anyway, I don't know.
We have a culture of corruption, Marco. Concerning Mr. Schumer, Schumer's remarks about the revocation of Roe v. Wade by the Supreme Court when they had the people marching in front of the homes of Supreme Court justices, and Schumer irking them on, why wasn't he indicted?
That's right.
Why was he not indicted? 41 members of the intelligence community, Clapper, Brenner, 41 of them signed a letter saying that Hunter Biden's laptop gives all the evidence of a Russian hoax. Conspiracy. They're just liars. Open liars. These people belong in prison, but they're not going there. Oh, they'll go to hell, but they won't go to prison. This is the reality of the situation in which we live.
Yeah, it's pretty dire. I'm going to ask you guys too. Another question is,
I could like to add just something quick, Marco.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
I get to talk to a lot of people, military guys and everything, and they may not be able to take on tanks and they may not be able to do that, but they're trained marksmen for shots for 1,000 yards, 1,500 yards, 2,000 yards. And they said, look, all we need is a few hundred people taken out and the other cowards will run for cover. So no, as Moriel, we don't advocate any of that. I'm just listening to people who believe themselves to be patriots and people who know that they're the capability of retired men that are seeing their country stolen, seeing the country they put their lives on the line, seeing their brothers left behind in Afghanistan, So
we've heard the testimony of Archer. We've seen him in the interviews. I've seen him, heard him. Obviously, some pretty damning evidence against the Biden administration and against his son. Are you shocked at the Republicans' response? McCarthy says, "I'm going on vacation. We'll deal with it later."
I'm not. He's a rhino. What do you expect from McCarthy?
But none of them are doing it.
Jim Jordan should be the Speaker of the House, not him. That's to begin with.
I would agree.
Yeah. Or that other chap, the black guy. I love him. What's McDowell? Anyway, one of those two. It shouldn't be McCarthy. He's a rhino. He was
handpicked by Trump. Remember?
Yeah, Trump is a guy who supported him. But I guess just no surprise of the spinelessness of the other party, which is just as evil as the other party. So it is a really, really rough situation. It's so disappointing.
Yeah,
and as Christians, I think a lot of times Well, I think this is a question we'll tackle it later. So I know you guys got.
I somewhat disagree. I'm not at all disappointed in the Republican Party because
No,
I'm
talking about the nation, Jacob.
I've never had any faith or respect for the Republican Party anyway.
No.
You know, it's just they're just Democrats sitting on the opposite side of the aisle, most of them.
Yeah,
their voting records.
Yeah,
their voting records show that they're Democrat. Guys like from South Carolina, he votes 67% of the time with the Democrats. The Rhino Graham. Yeah, go look at conservative scores and look at what these people who say they're Republicans vote for. Most of them vote for the Democrats on social things and all sorts of things.
Yeah, the disappointing part is the fact that you know that these guys are able to stop it, but they won't stop it. That's disappointing. Right. You know the reality, you know the facts, and they just won't do anything about it.
Well, God bless Rand Paul. God bless Senator Cruz. God bless several of them. Senator Kennedy. But they're the minority. They are the minority. Yeah. Now, I thank God for them, but they're the minority.
Let's talk about something that the Biden administration is doing that I think it's pretty important. It's a climate emergency. So energy industry chief says that Biden is going to seize control of a climate emergency. He hasn't done it yet because of the weather. It's hot in Arizona in August. I guess he's never heard of that. Or it's hot in Texas. So he is going to take over natural gas, coal, nuclear power because temperatures are exceeding 100 degrees Fahrenheit. And the media is telling you, don't go outside. I got a list of articles from the Washington Post, New York Times, NBC, MSNBC that telling you it's too hot. You can't go outside. Fear again. Fear. But the most troubling thing is declaring a climate emergency. He will seize control of energy and food production. We're basically in a dictatorship at that moment, if not already.
You're doing with the climate hoax what they did with the COVID. And COVID was, although there was a pandemic, it was politicized into a hoax. The same thing, same game, trying to expropriate powers. Never let a crisis go to waste. And if you don't have a crisis, as Rahm Emanuel said, well, then you make one. Yeah. This is what we're talking about. Look, I have never doubted. I've always been convinced that the mafia acting in concert with the FBI and CIA had a hand in the assassination of JFK. I've always believed that. And I would not put it beyond those same interest groups to assassinate Robert Kennedy's son if he runs as the third party candidate. God forbid. I don't fully agree with him, but I respect him. He's a traditional Democrat. He's like what JFK was. He's not what the Democratic Party has become. However, I would not put it past them to kill him if he became a political threat to them. These people have no scruples and no morals. Perhaps the only way to secure a victory is if Robert Kennedy's son ran as an independent candidate and divided the Democratic vote, and enough traditional Democrats voted for him instead of for Biden and or whoever, Newsom or whoever they eventually get. That is the situation that exists. We have to look ahead to these things.
Yeah, but I want to go back to the climate thing. I think we talked about the elections and all that. I want to go back to the climate change thing because that's really what's at stake. No matter what is going to happen in 2024, it may not be a 2024 election if these things continue the way it's going.
Not one that matters.
Well, even one at all.
I mean, COVID had the vote harvesting. That is a way to corrupt an election. 61% of Republicans believe that Biden is not legitimately elected. 61% of Republicans believe that. And vote harvesting was a major, major factor in their suspicions. Okay. So if you have a climate emergency, they'll do the same thing. Yeah. They will use that in order to find ways to rig an election. And it wouldn't be the first time that they've done it. That is what's going on. They'll stop at nothing. You just look at all the evidence for Hunter Biden and Joe Biden to be impeached and indicted. And the emphasis becomes on Trump, with the mainstream media saying it's all about Trump. No, it's about Biden. Trump's not the president anymore. Biden is. It's just absolutely corrupt and hellish. The only climate emergency Joe Biden needs to worry about is when he's burning in hell. That is the climate emergency
Too
that
late
you need
then.
to be concerned with, but it's probably too late.
Yeah. Well, Marco, since 1970, at the first Earth Day, they predicted, these climate people predicted that we would be frozen. We'd have to go to up here in North America, have to go to Mexico to live. I didn't learn Spanish at the time. I wasn't too worried about the prediction, but it didn't happen. Then it became climate warming, and then they reversed it, and they predicted and predicted and predicted. Even the little girl predicted climate. Our water would be up over the shores. That little girl from Sweden or wherever.
Greta Thunberg.
Yeah, she got it wrong and pulled it off her Twitter. These guys are all false teachers, false prophets. Al Gore with his hockey stick on weather. They're lying and lying. The whole purpose of all of this is to gain control and suppress the people.
All right, great point.
The bottom line.
Let me pivot real quick because about control. If you don't go along with it, they'll simply techno-censor you. And what I mean by techno-censor you is you would be deplatformed, you won't be heard. And now it started in England. It's obviously here in the States, but I don't doubt it's going to go everywhere. UK banks are closing accounts more than 1,000 a day, weaponizing banks. British banks are now closing accounts of clients that they don't agree politically. How can they get away with it? I know Farage wants to start a royal commission, in terms of investigation, but are those being debanked? But I don't know if it's going to happen or it's going to do anything about it. But it's time after time. You got different banks, and they're also closing their branches because they're going more online, which to the delight of Tony Blair, because he wants to get every UK citizen and as well as the world a digital ID. And for the UK, you're going to have one in order to reopen your bank account with certain restrictions. So, Jacob, since you live so close to Tony Blair, I have no idea where he lives, but since you are at least in the vicinity, does he still have a lot of pull? And are you concerned with these ridiculous things that he's saying about digital ID? Remember, he's a war criminal. So it's not the first time he's ever put somebody behind a real difficult spot. But at the same time, why are these banks getting away with this, and how can they be stopped?
First of all, almost all of the banks are integrated into the World Economic Forum. They are part of an agenda. That is true of banks, and it's true of social media. They subscribe to an agenda that they see as being in their long-term interests. That is what they're doing. They also know that there's an economic crisis looming globally that no government can control, no central bank can control. It's called unfunded liability and debt. It's true of Europe. It's true of America. It's particularly true of China. They know they need a new economic system to stop eventual financial chaos. That is also driving it. Now, Tony Blair is a vassal. He is a vassal. He's a vacillating political bureaucrat of the World Economic Forum. That's what he is. And as you rightly point out, he, Bill Clinton, Wesley Clark, and Javier Solana are, in effect, war criminals for what they did, intervening in the former Yugoslav in contravention of the NATO treaty. No NATO country was attacked, and NATO had no business, no legal rights to do what they did to take the side of the Kosovo Liberation Army Muslims who were aligned to Al-Qaeda. They had no right to do that, but they did it. He's a bad man. He's a very bad man. Yet, try to tell that to the average member of the British Labour Party, or even many Tories.
Yeah, was he running as a conservative? Right? Did he serve as a conservative?
He was Labour Party, but he was he reacted against the extreme left of the Labour Party.
Oh, okay. So he was seen as a centrist, so to speak.
Correct.
Yeah. Well, he's got this
centrist, right? Yeah.
This report, a new national purpose innovation can power the future of Britain. Guess what it has? Digital ID, CBDC, banks closing, you're going online. I don't know if you're going to be banking with these guys, these banks like what are some of the banks here? You got the Barclays,
Barclays,
Lloyd's, yeah. You got
HSBC, but
HSBC,
It's-
TSB.
these banks have already closed many branches.
Yeah,
They're just closing more.
yeah. Monzo, TSB. I mean, so what's the prospect of just the average UK citizen, British citizen, to say, well, I don't even know, I don't even have a smartphone, I don't even can get around on the internet. What are the recourse, especially for elderly?
Correct.
No cash,
Correct.
digital ID.
You only have a digital bank account. They can close it down by pushing one button.
Yeah, if you disagree with them, if you disagree with the war, if you
Then
disagree,
you've got to get a lawyer. Now, Nigel Farage had the public profile, and he had the lawyers and the money to fight it.
yeah,
The average person won't.
yeah. David, here in the States, the U.S. is also closing bank accounts, discriminating against conservatives primarily. We heard of the case of Dr. Mercola, who'd been outspoken against the liberal and leftist agenda. And I think it was Chase. Yeah, Chase shut him down. And I think he's suing, of course, and all that. But he's got at least the like Jacob said, the profile. But the average person who's going to get canceled because, hey, is there a social credit score already behind the scenes that we don't know about?
Of course there is. All you have to, like, when I go on my my account to invest, every stock has a social score, ESG score already. Okay, and they tell you they're average, they're great. They'll tell you what they're good on and bad on, so you can make a decision on whether you want to buy those stocks.
Yeah.
So the ESG is there. Those behind the scenes already want to use it, and they will go along with it eventually. But right now, we do have the Alliance Defense League is helping a couple people that have been turned off sue for their bank accounts, because right now we still have a few laws. We still have a few judges that are good men, some Trump has put in, that are saying, hey, you can't do this, and you can't just take a person's money and close their account just because of a social score. You have to actually have crimes and things like this, but that will eventually get here. They'll have cyber crimes you've committed or whatever. But
David, let me ask you this. I know the companies have an ESG. Do you think that we already have a social credit score for individuals? Because the banks are doing it on some kind of basis. It's not arbitrary.
I think it started, they're doing it to selective people
Yeah,
to start warning people, get in line or you're next.
that's scary.
So
That's
it's
scary.
coming.
Yeah,
But you're either going to be afraid, you're either going to, make provisions the best you can to go down the line as far as you can. That's about the best we can do.
we know Google has helped the Chinese, the CCP, with the social credit score. There is a soft social score within Google in terms of they ban you, they don't ban you, that kind of stuff. India
Marco,
is
if I
coming up
may.
with their own. India's coming up with their own. So we got about
Digital ID, yeah.
a billion people already in some kind of social credit score. I guess you could say almost maybe half the world is going to be in a social credit score, if not already. Go ahead, Jay.
Marco, if I may, just to go down the rabbit hole a little bit. Imagine if you made an app where people willingly gave you all of their political views, where they would post things about their locations, what they're eating, their friends, their associations, their contacts, and you made this so that they had the power to give you their own dossier and basically give you a detailed dossier of their life, their financials. And you know what you'd have? You'd have Facebook.
Yep.
You'd have Meta.
Yep.
You'd have Instagram.
It's already here.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. And of course, the next step is going to be CBDC, because you don't really have an account. You don't have an online bank. You don't have cash. And obviously, these are the reasons. I'm just going to give you some of the reasons the banks in the UK, like Barclays and Halifax and HSBC, are saying the reason why they're going online is because pricing structure made sense for their type of businesses. People want online convenience. Businesses are going online. Digital personal banking. It's consistent with the way society is. I mean, obviously, these are platitudes and talking points, but the reality of it is you are going to be in a digital banking and God forbid CBDC. But it just seems like it's coming around the corner with no end and with no stopping it. There's no legislation. I mean, there's some legislation in certain states here in America, but Jacob, in the UK, is there any sort of roadblocks for the CBDC for coming on?
No, there's nothing going to stop it. Absolutely nothing whatsoever. Nothing. But the only thing is it wouldn't be dictated from Brussels now. It would have to be dictated by the Bank of England. But they would. There's still global players, and they would still certainly do it. Nothing's going to stop it. We are heading rapidly towards Revelation 13. We are heading towards the Paresmos, towards the hour of testing. All of these things, the configuration of events as they are progressing at the moment, all point to one thing: the Paresmos, the hour of testing. It is all heading full speed towards Revelation 13. Revelation 13 can happen very quickly. I can see it taking place even in a few years. I'm not speculating about dates, but within a few years, I can see it happening.
Just what I was telling David, I said India is coming up with I think they've been doing it for about 7 years, getting biometrics from people and getting information. Ken sending me some information. Thank you, Ken. The UFI is what they call it in India. And it is absolutely scary when you have all of India already under biometric data in a database, plus China, plus Google in the West, plus in the East as well. Jacob, I don't disagree with you. It could happen very quickly if already more than half the world is under some kind of social credit score, and there's no roadblocks in the West. Only the hand of the Lord can delay it, but it seems like it's going very, very fast.
That is correct.
The UN doesn't want you to talk about it because they just unveil what they call I-Verify. You put something online, they're going to verify it. If they don't like it, it'll be taken down. It'll be considered misinformation. With some of the laws here in the States about misinformation and what Trump is being accused of and indicted, Jacob, do you see this sort of scenario that the presidents will be set with Trump saying things that they don't like, doing things that they don't like?
Absolutely. The First, Second, and Fourth Amendment are being dismembered. The First, Second, and Fourth Amendment are being dismembered by enemies of democracy and enemies of the Constitution. But again, our freedoms came from a belief that democracy can only work if we're governed by men who are governed by God. Now that that's gone, democracy is not going to work. It can't work.
Yeah. What do we do with believers that, okay, I'll assume they're believers. So just kind of go with it on this end. Assume they're believers, but they don't know, or they don't want to know, or they subscribe to a theology or an idea that, we just want happy times. Let's not talk about the bad things. God's going to work it all out. So why are we even talking about this? We won't be here anyway. So there's a lot of the spectrum of, not just one ideology, but a spectrum of ideologies that cannot cope with this.
These are people who don't read the Word of God. They prefer to shovel muck than deal with reality. And there's an organized program for it. Again, the purpose-driven lie being one: avoid end-time prophecy. Satan has the nations deceived. He has Israel deceived to rejecting its Messiah, and they'll make a deal with the Antichrist. Now Satan is trying to neutralize the Bible-believing church. Enter his servants like Rick Warren. Then there's the word faith people. God wants you rich. You don't have to suffer. You're a king's kid. Enter Kenneth Copeland, Jesse Duplantis. Then you have the other people that the storm is coming, but don't worry about getting a raincoat or a lifeboat. We're going to be raptured pre-tribulation. This is another fantasy and a myth that only biblically undiscerning and naive people will wind up believing. They're holding on to something that's collapsing because it's never been true and it's not in Scripture. So you've got the word faith people, the blab it and grab it crowd. You've got the Antichrist pseudo-evangelicism represented by people like Rick Warren. And then you have the people who live in fantasy world, the pre-trib people. They prefer to live in a fantasy world rather than face the real one. They all shovel muck. It's muck. It's not reality. It's garbage. But there will be those who know their God and take action.
Amen.
Daniel tells us, the Lord promises.
Amen.
He's a true prophet, and what he says comes true.
Yeah. I just wanted to, David, I want to mention this. These are the fourth most influential pastors, at least in the U.S. It's Joel Osteen, Rick Warren, Stephen Furtick, Joseph Prince, and Andy Stanley.
False.
Right?
False teachers, yes.
This is the influential one. Now,
Really?
Yeah.
Find me one who's not a heretic.
Yeah. And
Joseph
the
Prince
thing is, it's that they're followers of these guys and they're multiplied by minions. Jacob, that message you did where they share each other's lies. They just take their
The birdcage, right?
This is what these guys are doing. They're passing this on everywhere, and it's millions and millions of deceived Christians following deceived men, and both are headed to the ditch. I bet you there's 100 million deceived Christians in America, maybe more.
You have Joseph Prince now at his church with the drag queen show.
Yep.
You had Andy Stanley, who detests the Old Testament, that won't preach it from it. You have Rick Warren that says, don't worry about prophecy. And you have Joel Osteen that says, everything's great. This is your best life now. This is the theology of America. Tim Keller passed away, so he's not influential anymore. I guess his books are, but this is the theology of America, of American Christians. And they see this stuff, and I don't know. I can't put myself in their head, and I don't know how they perceive it, but it just seems like they don't want to hear it. They don't want to talk about.
But where's the alternative to these people? Who is it? John Piper? Don't make me laugh. He's into the Lectio Divina. He's replacement theology. He's completely off the rails. Who's the alternative? Is it John MacArthur? It's possible to take the mark of the beast and still be saved and go to heaven? That John MacArthur? Where is the alternative to these people? There is no viable alternative anymore. There is no counterpoint to this corrupted leadership.
There's a few godly men in bad denominations. There's a few men in bad churches, like you say on the rebellion of Sheba. There's still, God still has his remnant. But Jacob, when you go out on this fellowship drive in Marco, you're going to see it's only the really hungry that are willing to drive 30 miles or 40 miles, just be able to spend a few hours with people that can share koinonia. That's what they say. Oh, I'm so happy to be able to share Christ with people that know what I'm talking about and have that same love for Jesus in their heart. I mean, it's like a cry of love to just, I mean, this one guy, Jacob, hugged me like 6 times because he just missed fellowship. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
He just was so happy to have someone that he could discuss and talk about. The greatest person in the world is Jesus that saves him. You know?
These are desperate times. And I remember Leonard Ravenhill talking about desperate time. He says, God doesn't answer prayers. He answers desperate prayers.
Yeah.
This is where I don't know what's going to take for the Christian church to be desperate for prayer, desperate for fellowship, desperate in need of Christ's spirit in us. But as Jacob talked about, all the environment in which we live, the atmosphere, the spiritual atmosphere, and we're going to save it for the end. So just hold on, guys. We're going to go on backstage and talk about that a little bit more in terms of the Gallup polls and some of the things that are going on within the Christian church. But I want to turn my attention real quick before we get to Israel, because we're almost done. Did you guys see that first robot CEO, AI robot CEO, Mika, or Mika, I think it's called, Mika, Mika. Interesting how within a few years from Sophia, the first robot AI that went around the world and told people that how technology is going to be great. Now we're facing the reality of less jobs, Hollywood's not working. I mean, I don't know if anybody's sad about that, but the actors are not working, but the movies are going to be made with AI. The script writers are not working, but AI keeps writing them. But now we have the first CEO by Hanson Robotics. She's a CEO of a base rum distilling company called Dictator. And she's the proof of concept of an AI basically running the company. And many are saying we're not going to need a CEO. We're not going to need workers. We're going to need CEOs because they never ask for raises. They never take a day off. They don't go on vacation or get sick. So profit making. We have CBDCs, we have censorship, we have this digital technology. Now we have robotics with AI, which is dangerous. We already talked about the dangers of it in this fellowship, in this episodes here. But what do you guys think about this robotic? Are they here? Are we going to see this very soon in the workplace, automatons and things like that?
Hey, two CEOs I would immediately replace. One, the CEO of Budweiser. Okay, we can have just a can of Bud Light that looks like a robot, and he could be better CEO than that CIA shill that they have in there right now. Two, I would make an AI robot of Mickey Mouse and replace Bob Iger so that we could get rid of some of the woke stuff at Disney. Just a little bit would be nice.
Yeah. You know what? If anybody's on the comment, just send who would you replace? I want to see what people.
That'd be great.
Who would they replace? I want to. It's so difficult, and sometimes a good laughter is the best medicine. I just want to see who they would replace. I would replace Zuckerberg, and in a heartbeat. But Jacob, what do you think? The CEOs being replaced, we got Hollywood actors being replaced, which I don't think you're going to shed a tear. And you got writers being replaced. You got the sewer pipe of Hollywood being replaced. No crying on my end, but overall, where do you think in the short term is going to go? We know long term, this sounds like the image of the beast.
Short term, they're going to say that we're going to have a slave culture, only the slaves won't be people. The slaves will be machines, will be computers. And we'll have universal income, and we won't have to do anything. Everything else, from getting your teeth filled to managing your business, will be done by computers.
It's a communist dream.
Ultimately, the computers will enslave people. Revelation chapter 13.
Hey, Marco.
Yeah, go ahead, David.
I was watching, I think it was Bloomberg, and they have one of those, the scrolls that go off across the bottom of the machine. And it came across and said, if you have spent any amount of time with like a chat GI, the chat bot, he said, you will soon find that it starts lying right away. Or it didn't use the word lying. It said falsehoods. Sorry.
No worries.
I don't want to misquote them. Falsehoods, you would experience them very soon.
Go ahead, Jay.
All right. Sorry, I forgot to press the mute button again. So I'll repeat real quick. There's two CEOs I would like to replace. The CIA shell at Budweiser. I just want a can of beer to replace it that has an AI. And then I would replace Bob Iger. With a Mickey Mouse AI that would just say, everything's great. Everybody gets raises.
Well, if somebody else has a comment on that, please let us know. I love to hear what people think about it being replaced, but that is coming very, very soon. In fact, it didn't take too long from Sophia to Mika. I would imagine what the next iteration is going to be. People already on social credit score. AI is literally in a very dangerous way. This is what I wanted to say, Jacob and David. So these guys want to control AI so they can become God. But you're saying you're going to be enslaved by that what you created, and eventually the gods that you created will enslave you.
That is correct. But ultimately, it'll be because of the Antichrist and false prophet. That's how it's going to happen.
That's right. Jacob, it's an insanity, right? Harari, Musk, Schwab, these guys, they don't believe in God. They're the atheists to the God, don't believe in God, but yet they want to become gods.
Of course. That's an Antichrist spirit.
Yeah.
That is an Antichrist spirit.
Yeah. Or like what's his name? Trump's son-in-law, who's supposed to be an Orthodox Jew. He wants to be immortal, I don't get it. He believes in God, through his Orthodox faith in the Jewish God, but yet he wants to become God. He wants to become.
Remember, Daniel was very specific. The Antichrist will make a covenant with the Jews. The Jews will make a covenant with death. Kirshner is a candidate. I'm sorry to say so is Ben Shapiro, because I like him. I pray that such men get saved before it's too late, because unbelieving Jews, particularly the Orthodox, having rejected the true Messiah, will embrace a false one.
That's right. That's right.
Hey, would it be fair to say, Jacob, that these guys that are doing all this, the Hararis and all of them, they're all going to end up worshiping Antichrist and taking him on?
But they are simply his prophets preparing the way for him to come.
Right. But their death is already laid out.
Look, I can handle people like Harari and Schwab who are preparing the way for Antichrist. I can handle people like that. My problem is people within the evangelical church who are doing the same thing, preparing the way for Antichrist, like Rick Warren.
Yeah.
The knives in the back.
Yeah, let's switch to Israel as we finish. Since we're winding down, catching up into backstage. So if you haven't sent your questions in on Rumble and you want to go and switch over to Rumble and send your questions, Jay will take them and send them our way for Jacob and David, and we'll be handling it in a few minutes. So just final thing about Israel, then we'll close out. Jacob, you have guys like Alexander Zoros, who has a great family and great pedigree, and he's over there in Israel. Stoking the flames of revolution. What many think it's a what they called a coup d'etat, a military coup d'etat, that it's already at work to try to get Benjamin Netanyahu out. Reservists who are not showing up because they just don't agree with all the stuff that's going on. You have a high-speed rail from Saudi Arabia to Israel that most people think it's going to be. I mean, they literally said a third temple, bringing pilgrims to the third temple. And this prepares the way for Mashiach and the way of redemption with, I guess, what is it? Geula, redemption. Project to be completed by 2040. Just have a few minutes. Unpack all that stuff up. What are we dealing in Israel? Is there really a coup, a military coup going on?
There is no doubt whatsoever that the Biden administration, CIA, State Department, the usual cast of characters, is in collaboration with not only the Israeli left, but even the left center, but even with certain people within the Likud party to try to depose Benjamin Netanyahu. That is absolutely true. And it is absolutely true that for the first time since the 1980s, it happened in the Lebanon War, which was like Israel's version of Vietnam in the 1980s, the first time since then that you have people in the Military, the reserves, refusing to do the reserve, refusing to do their reserve duty as a political protest. Now, I do think if the nation's survival was threatened by a major attack from Iran, that wouldn't happen. They would come to a reserve mobilization. But right now, you're seeing this as a form of political protest over the reaction to a politicized judiciary, a judiciary that is out of control, that is usurping the power of Parliament, of the Knesset. Much the same as what you see with the federal court systems in the United States. Agenda is judges legislating from the bench. The problem again becomes the coalition governments of Israel, the proportional representation, unworkable quagmire of Israeli politics, where religious parties can use the power of the parliament to negate decisions of the court. So in other words, instead of the court being the problem, negating the decisions of parliament, they're creating a system where the parliament, the Knesset, can negate judicial decisions of the court that will be done on the basis of the political interests of the religious parties. The problem with this mess is there is truth on both sides. There is truth on both sides of the issue. The religious parties of Israel, what we call Hamafagot Datiot, they are as much a threat to Israeli democracy, as much a threat to the Israeli democracy as anything else.
Unbelievable.
They're in the coalition. They're in the government.
The rail. What are your thoughts on that rail? By 2040, they're supposed to complete it. It's bizarre the way it's looked at, and bizarre in a way that it's so looked upon prophetically, and it's just a railway. But the thinking is like the Queen of Sheba coming to visit Solomon is preparing the way of Messiah. It's going to bring pilgrims into the third temple.
What they want to do is bring the Saudi Arabians, the Salafist Sunnis, controlled by the Wahhab in Saudi Arabia. They and other Muslims view the Mosque of Omar and the Mosque of Aqsa as the third holiest site in Islam. They claim that Muhammad said a prayer made there is worth more than 1,000 prayers made anywhere.
Oh, wow.
Now, this has, of course, whether Al-Quds is Jerusalem is debated. The Quran doesn't say Jerusalem. It says Al-Quds, and some Muslim scholars later claimed it was Jerusalem. It only became the third holiest site in Islam in terms of the way it is brandished that way for political reasons since 1967, okay? They didn't talk about that a lot before 1967, but they talk about it now. Revelation chapter 11 shows us a division on the Temple Mount.
Yeah.
Okay? I've always said that if the late Asher Kaufman's calculations or determinations of the temple's location, as opposed to those of Dan Bahat and others, are correct, that the temple could be rebuilt 70 meters north of the Dome of the Rock, where the Dome of the Spirits are, without taking down the Mosque of Omar. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm just saying it will be possible. Yeah. But there will be some kind of partition on the Temple Mount where you will have interfaith worship of Christian, Jew, and Muslim. And the Abraham Accords of Jared Kushner is a step in that direction. This train to bring Saudi pilgrims to Jerusalem will be the same thing.
Saudi spending a ton of money in the billions for new technological advancements. The city that we talked about here.
Yeah, they want to connect. They'll want to connect Jerusalem with neon by high-speed rail, and it's not that far. It's like a metro line or an Asila journey from Washington to New York.
Oh, yeah, that's not far at all. Absolutely. No. Jacob, as we finish, what are your thoughts? Do you think Netanyahu makes it, or are they really trying to depose him? And
they're trying to depose him. They're absolutely trying to depose him.
Yeah, are they going to be successful?
I don't know at this particular point, but I know that Biden wants to bring him down. Yeah. Now, the other factor in this wanting to bring him down is Biden wants to betray America the way Obama did and give tens of billions of dollars to Iran to murder Americans and to murder non-Muslims. He wants to fund Islamic terror the way Obama did. He wants to fund radical Shia terror the way Obama did and Susan Rice did. That's what the Biden administration wants to do. And obviously Netanyahu was standing against this. That's the problem. Yeah. Biden determined to betray America the way Obama did, and to sell Israel down the river the way Obama did. But to knife Israel in the back the way Obama did. Don't forget, Biden is just a geriatric stooge. He's a senile corrupt.
That control him. Yeah, people that control him. So there's two Baracks on this betrayal. Hey, Barack Obama.
Yeah, that's correct.
Oh, man. All right. Well, let's finish off here. Thank you, Jacob. Thank you, David. We're going to be going on to backstage. Great stuff, exhilarating stuff. We got some more firepower coming on backstage, taking some questions. Send it in, Jay. We'll filter them out. Send it out to me. We'll get to ask these gentlemen the questions, and we'll talk about the state of the church and some gospel, I guess, question mark singers and persecution of believers in America. Well, we'll let Jacob tell us all about that. Catching up. Thank you so much. God bless you guys. We'll see you on backstage.
See you on backstage.
Hello, and thank you for watching Moriel TV. There are so many things that are happening at Moriel Ministries worldwide, from the Philippines to Japan to India to Africa and back to Europe and the United States. So many of our brothers and sisters are spreading the good news of Jesus Christ to this lost world. We are so thankful for your prayers. God has been faithful and has blessed us in so many ways. If you'd like to partner with our efforts abroad and at home, please take a moment to click the link in the description and help us as the Lord leads you. Thank you very much, and God bless.